Hey everybody, it's Cinnamon Cooney, your Art Sherpa, and today I'm going to show you step by step how you can create this gorgeous, non-objective, beautiful, emotional, abstract painting in acrylic. We're going to be working on palette knife techniques. This is all palette knife, no brush work. I'm going to talk to you about ways to save money. I'm going to talk to you about different techniques and demonstrate how to get these results with the knives so that you can learn this along with me. Now, to help me do this is my husband, John.
Hello.
He is helping me bring together not just this painting, but 30 paintings. This is Acrylic April. You see the little button there, and it's a 30-day painting challenge where every day we get together and paint a different abstract painting, because nothing gets you better at painting than painting every day. If you check the description below, you will find a link to the website, more resource materials, things to help you as a new student, a store if you want to buy some materials you see or are suggested here today, a book to help you paint the 30-day challenge where the instructions are written out with step-by-step photos, a group on Facebook called the Acrylic April group, and of course, if you are a person who needs sequential learning, the school. All right, so there's really nothing to do besides opening that place where I had the materials and the colors and the brushes and the things that I use and tell you where all the places to go. That's the more button. And then come get those materials and then come back to your easel and meet me. And I'm going to show you how to paint this at home. Okay, let's go. So for today's project, we're going to be using an 8x8 canvas. The nice thing about squares is they size up and size down. So if you're painting along, using the square lets you change the aspect ratio really easily. That's how big or small it is. Now, I have Mars Black, Burnt Sienna, Phthalo Green, Hansa Lemon Yellow, Cad Yellow Medium, Cad Red Medium, Quinacridone Magenta, and Titanium White. And you'll notice that I put my CADs in smaller amounts out on the palette. And that is because we're doing Artist Knife today. And when we're doing Artist Knife, it uses up a lot of paint, so I like to put it out as I need it and not have extra that I don't need, that I feel then compelled that I've got to use, and then I end up not wanting in the project, if that makes sense. So that's why I have that like that, and I think we're ready to hop into step one. It's Art Knife today. So the first thing that I'm going to want to do is I'm going to take my big trowel, right? This is my large yellow trowel, and I'm going to grab a little of my brown right there. You saw I picked it up on my knife. I grab a little of my yellow, a little of my red, and I'm going to mix these together pretty thoroughly. Get kind of this nice warm brown. Isn't that lovely? And I'm going to make sure it's all sort of collected together. And now I'm going to take a little bit of my white and mix just a small amount of this on there. See how it's like even loosely mixed? And I'm going to come scraping down on the canvas, covering the canvas. And I'm scraping over the same areas again.
That's
Isn't that interesting?
It's a light beiging.
It's a light beiging. And the reason I'm doing this, besides the fact that it gives me a lovely value series to play with, right? This light beiging, is white is your cheapest color. So on a painting where you're using just knife, there's a lot of things you can do to get the cost down. One of the things is to use Sennelier's Abstract Acrylic. It's a pouch paint, and it's the same pigments as the Pro brands for the most part, except where they use hues. And it doesn't have shrinkage, which almost every other student paint does. So when you use it, it not only saves your pocketbook, but it doesn't completely undermine the techniques that you worked very hard for. It takes a minute to palette knife a whole background. It's okay if sometimes you get a little more brown, or if you want to blend, you just generally go back and forth with the knife and the knife smooth to the surface. Knife work takes a little bit of time to get used to. I'll tell you some tricks about it. If you're doing anything that looks like something else, right? Like you want to paint like ballerina and artist knife, you have to upsize the canvas and go much bigger. Think of it like Minecraft, how you do pixel art.
Mm-hmm.
Palette knife painting in that way is a lot like pixel art, where you're using lots of marks next to each other that are fairly large to create the details, and that's why going bigger is helpful. On smaller canvases like this, you'd have to use a very small knife, and it would be very challenging. This is not fast. And that's okay.
It's okay.
It's good to learn how to scrape.
Not all ultra beiges are fast.
None of them are. But what we're really doing is just covering the canvas.
One was.
One was?
There was one fast ultra beige.
What was that one fast ultra beige?
1977 Monte Carlo. It was in a cannonball run.
Problematic movie, man.
Oh no, that was the real cannonball.
Oh, the real one?
The real one. It was, which is also problematic, but it was a really fast old Monte Carlo. It was painted beige. It was from the factory beige.
Now, the reason I start with an off-white like this, or a kind of, it's not just perfect, it's kind of like an eggshell, is because I can come back with white still as a value up. I do find the noise of the knife going over the surface kind of satisfying.
Yes, it's
and I will come back through and try to prevent like patterns and things. I want it to be kind of clean knife work. So I will do that. I will be using my giant tube of white today.
What kind of white is that?
Titanium white.
And it's the...
This is the pro paint. And this would be, if you're learning to paint, that might be a little hard to swallow in the artist knife space.
And the zinc white's that is more transparent one.
The zinc is the more transparent one.
Yeah.
This is the opaque one. It's a cheaper pigment to make. You can get it in almost any line of paint. And that's just some things that you can do in your knife work where you come through and add some. See when I go over it with the white there? I'm going to blend that in though, because I want to save that for a minute from now. Going back up and down. And this is sort of mixing on the canvas. See how we're doing? If you've ever done plaster Paris, it's similar work. I'm just coming smoothing along with the knife.
Is this impasto?
Not yet.
Oh.
It is more impasto maybe than a lot of brushwork in that you can see it and there is some paint buildup.
It's textural.
This is the back of this. It's textural. I'm going to wipe my knife. I'm going to go ahead and dip it in the water and wipe it. If you're doing artist knives, sometimes it's nice to have baby wipes around too because it's a great way to clean them. Now, let's call this a step. I'm not going to dry it because I'm going to be working wet into wet with the artist knife. That's new for us, isn't it?
That is.
It is very new. Now, on this, I'm going to be coming up from lighter colors and building up into darker colors, and I'm going to size down in my knife, and I'm going to go ahead and get my smaller diamond head. I'm going to take a little of my burnt sienna and my phthalo green together, and I'm going to make that deep forest green we all like so much. Well, I like it quite a lot. How you feel about it? Maybe you're like, it's not my favorite. I'm going to mix that in there fairly thoroughly, and I do wipe off on a paper towel to control, you know, what I've got. And I'm going to take the smallest amount of the green over to my yellow, and I'm going to get this kind of interesting, vibrant green here. Let's take this, and we're going to come here. I'm going to mark down into the paint. I'm marking up and down. The knife is very flat into the surface, right? And that's how I'm getting my skips. You guys talk a lot about those skips being challenging. You know, that's how we're getting the skips. Here, where I want to soften it out, look, I can just blend it in on the paint that I've already got here. And I may even come and take a little of this and mix it into my white. So I've got kind of a green, creamy color. There we go. It's kind of a little minty, and go right over that background, already pre-lighting it. So a light value, yes?
Yeah, it really is.
This is very light value. Kind of working that in a little more. Not ready for the full dark yet. Bringing it down. So I've got kind of a little bit of green coming through here and a little bit of a hue. Wipe off. Let's call it a step, and we're going to keep going. Now I'm going to take a little of this green over to my yellow, my lemon yellow Hansa, and that's much brighter, isn't it? And we come right here. I'm going to just drag down. I'm going to load, you know, we're doing that right side bead, and we're pulling down. Let's get a little of that vibrancy, shall we? On that white. Coming up over that. It's nice texture, isn't it? So what we're learning here, besides how to handle a very light composition, is how to handle the knife, right? Like when I'm trying to get that little skips, I'm coming over at parallel, just touching the canvas and allowing the paint to come off. And you can see I can skip down, skips. For those of you that just instantly went to the regular show in your mind, I respect that. That'll happen. It for sure will. I'm going to come over this, or kind of the top of this. Maybe grab a little of that light green and pull that here. And because there was two colors on my knife, I get a couple off. Look at that there. That's a beautiful passage right there. Now let's call this a step, and we're going to come back. I know. We're working really hard. Let's get a little bit of that color that we mixed into our background, this like orange brown that we had. Let's come here and add it into a couple of places. Not too much. Isn't that lovely?
That was interesting.
Just pulling out there.
Yeah.
You know, you can always knock it back or blend it in. Come across, 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 and down. We haven't even done any sgraffito, which is the removing of paint, which I always find to be tremendously fun overall. I do like it. Doing pretty well here. Get a little just white. I'm going to put out more white because that's the kind of composition that this is. It is that kind of composition where we're just layering and lightening and layering and lightening. Very pure abstract. I'm going to come here. Let's call this a new step. Now, I'm going to load up, right? I'm loading up a bead. That's that roll along at the side. And I'm going to drag down some pure white over my beige. That's nice, isn't it? That's just its own. You can do this. Like, sometimes I think you guys get really in your head and you're like, I can't use the palette knife, and then you forget you frosted a cake. You've really done all these techniques. You just don't know that you have. I'm going to come back over where I have my brown, I think, and kind of pull it back with the lemon yellow and white, because I want it to be lighter than it is. So I kind of worked that back because I felt like that was a little too much. But not that one. I really like that, so I'm going to leave that there. So we're sort of building up these values of color over here on the side. That's where our focus is going to be because it's our greatest contrast. And this is a very abstract, non-objective work, which means it's not going to, at this stage, look like anything. Now I'm going to come here, and I think I'm going to, yeah, let's do a step. Thank you, babe. I'm going to do step 6. I'm going to come get my dark green, I think. And I'm going to just lightly work this over there. Well, that's nice. Maybe bring this down here. Kind of stroke to the right and the left, up. I feel like I got too much white there. Bringing that down. Pulling a little bit here. There. There. See how we kind of made little structures, like little briquettes that came down?
Yeah.
Now I'm going to load a bead on the left of the knife. And again, just sort of touch and release those little briquettes. I love it. This is looking pretty good. Come back with a little bit of white over the top there. So that pulls, again, these layers. We're dancing layers and we're talking about things against each other. I'm going to go ahead and even get some black. Kind of pull that out. On the toe. Tapping with a little bit of line there. See that little black there? Loading a light bead. Tap up and down. Isn't that fun and delicate? Not what you'd expect, is it? If I load the left side, I can tap a bead up towards the top, going from the bottom up. Those are fun. I didn't even know how interesting that was going to be, did you? So, and I still probably put out more than I essentially maybe totally needed, you know, in this. I'm going to come back with a little more of my bright green. Pull that on that top there. Let's really get a lot of this yellow in it. Just a nice thick. So now that's impasto. That bead's pretty thick. The application down is pretty thick. See how we're doing that? That's thick. Head there and add that as a little bit of a thick space. Then I can just carefully right there. All right, let's call that a step. We're coming to the end of this project, believe it or not. And it just, I know, it started out like, oh, yay, we're painting a white canvas. Is that the kind of abstract we're doing today? Because that is a kind of abstract. It's a very minimalist abstract, but it is kind of an abstract. I'm going to take a little of my Cad Red and my quinacridone magenta. I might even get a little of my lemon yellow involved. Make kind of this wild color. Isn't that wild? And come over and see if we can get the pink I'm looking for. Maybe a little more pink here. There we go. So I'm looking for a pink, but I wanted it to be a little bit glowy. I am thoroughly mixing it, you'll notice. And I'm going to come here and, so see this level where I go scrape, scrape, and it's mostly on the toe of the knife here. I'm just adding just a little kind of bit of pink. These are thick applications. It's come with a nice thick load here. Kind of a little couple dots there. That's really quite, woo! A little yellow in that. Takes it like kind of to a peachy peach. Just those little pops of color. And we're there. They're really,
Wow, I was just sort of just staring off into daydreaminess. Now, what about signing this one?
This one, I'm inclined to not sign, and because this is so non-objective as an abstract, it doesn't look like anything. It has a feeling, and it has value and color and form and shape, right? But it doesn't say, this is a teapot, and teapots face this way, and this is where the handle and the spout goes. It doesn't have that kind of object orientation for our minds. And what will happen to people, like you have what you felt this was when you're painting it, and I have what I felt this was when I was painting, but it's about a feeling, not about an object. And so for some people, it will feel like this orientation is how it's supposed to go, maybe because they saw it created this way. But for other people, they may want to turn it or orient it differently. And there is some element, I feel, to allowing viewers or the people who purchase the work and then live with it after we're done to come in and, you know, discover their own relationship to the piece. So I will tend to sign on the back on something like this. That signature still will tend to make decisions for them, you know, and that's why you will see artists that do not sign at all. It's not just that they're like, you should be able to tell my art by my art, and I mean, maybe they are a little bit, but really what they're doing is they are being participants in some way with the buyers, and they don't want to take away that collaboration.
Sure.
Right. So I would sign the back on this. I really like this. I think. In abstract art, we have this thing called passages, and I really like these little passages here. I like the almost comma shape of this paint. Knife work is difficult work. Oh yeah, let's take that up close to her. Knife work is difficult work. You know, did we get to do close up like this while I was doing it? Or okay. Yeah. So your marks don't need to be exactly the same as my marks. That's not a requirement in any way. What you're trying to learn is the techniques, the way that the knife drops paint off, the way that design and value and hue create composition. Those are the things that you're working on. You may have put your paint down a little differently, and guess what? That's okay. That is fine. You're not trying to, be a copy machine to me. Now, the other thing I want to talk to you about is the palette. I use a wet palette, and that's because sometimes I'm working on a project and it takes a couple of days, or it keeps my paint fresher for the show. But a lot of people, most people, almost everybody else, uses a wet palette because it saves paint just for that. Now, one of the biggest things that throws you off as a new abstract painter, that makes it harder for you to succeed at your abstracts, is you will want to do something with this paint. The cost of the paint, especially now with things being expensive the way that they are, I think it's going to be even harder for people. The cost of the paint will make you want to figure out how to use all of it. And what will happen is this sort of white noise, uniform value, the colors become muddy, the structure and design begins to become diffused. And that is a type of abstract, but it is often not as satisfying for people. So yeah, you could come through and just use all of yours. Like maybe somebody this acrylic April will take all their leftover paint and put it all on one canvas and create like a meta canvas from the whole month. Boy, I wish I thought of that painting day one. That would have been a good final project.
Share yours with us.
But if you did it, share yours with us. I would, man. But that would be a thing that you could do, or you can save this paint and paint another design on another day. You can kind of scrape the pure paint and rinse these and reuse them. There's some options there, and that's a way to save money on it. Abstract acrylic by Sennelier is another way to do abstract and save money, especially if you're doing thick techniques like where you're piping out paint like direct on canvas.
It's very impasto.
Yeah, where it's just like it's going to be that thick. I'm going to have some example paintings of this because I'm getting ready for a show and I'm going to be demoing, and I'm going to be demoing this paint's property. And I don't have them on me, but I will have them on because I make some where the paint doesn't shrink as it dries. And that's the big deal mostly between professional paints and student paints is they shrink out, the volume diminishes, and so your work just kind of goes away. Where on abstract acrylic, it doesn't. So what you can do there is you can buy the inexpensive pigments from them and then maybe use a little CAD or a little bit of the pricey, vibrant color that you need, that there isn't a substitution in hue that you really like, and therefore build everything up and have all that. And that's something a professional artist will often do, is make those decisions in the studio because they know how those materials work together. So that's a suggestion that I would have for you. Remember, I hide things in the description. You should totally subscribe to the channel because I teach art for free all year. Been doing it for years. There's so much stuff for you. There's free traceables. There's thousands of videos. We do this monthly. We do this Acrylic April every year, and it's 30 days of daily painting. How crazy is that? If you check the description below, you can see a link to the website. You're going to see a link to the store where you can buy these materials. We'll have the abstract acrylic that I mentioned in the store because that's how much I believe in it. But you don't have to buy it from me. I just have it there. It's other places. Definitely always do cross shopping. We have the books. We have so if you need book help with this, we have book help with this. We have the school if you need sequential learning. We have the stuff. And the portal to that is that little subscribe button that you want to hit. Hit it, and then you'll know. And leave me a comment. Let me know what you thought of today. I always love these because I know in each painting, there's different days that are people's favorite days. So be good to yourselves. Be good to each other. And I want to see you at an easel really soon. Bye-bye.